All right, happening now. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is meeting with leaders across Europe, hoping to bolster support ahead of this highly anticipated spring offensive. Zelensky met with the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak this morning, following meetings with the leaders of Germany, France, and Italy. Now, this follows a remarkable 24 hours that might have seen the downing of 4 Russian aircraft in one single day. Now, it happened inside Russia, in Russian territory, right here in the Bryansk region. You can see this is Ukraine, this is Russia. The details of this are murky, but one Russian media outlet said that there were 4 different aircraft involved. This is what we're looking at here. 2 Russian jets, the Su-34 and the Su-35, and 2 Russian military helicopters, the Mi-8. With us now is CNN military analyst and retired Army General James Spider Marks. General, thanks so much for being with us. We have video that might show one of these helicopters being shot down. It really is remarkable imagery. If in fact, Spider, 4 aircraft in one day in one region, what would that tell you? How significant?
Well, it's very significant, John. And again, thank you for having me today. What that tells you is the Ukrainian forces clearly have a very robust, now increasingly sophisticated air defense capability, ground launch capability to go after and across the Russian border. So to go after Russian targets and across into Russian airspace. That's very significant. If the Ukrainians want to be able to achieve this level of operational success on the ground, again, bear in mind, what we've seen to date is incredible creative tactical successes by the Ukrainians. If you want to increase that, tie those tactical successes together, force the Russians' hand, force them back. You've got to strike deep into Russia. You've got to go after military targets, not civilian targets, not villages. Go after those areas that are now currently in sanctuary and put those military Russian forces under the fire of Ukrainian forces. This is a great example.
I just want people to get one more look at this in case they haven't seen it. Again, this is video that purports to show one of these helicopters apparently being struck inside Bryansk. You were talking about these strikes that are happening inside Russian territory. We have a map here of some of the sites where there have apparently been strikes on Russian holdings. Now, Spider, there was also a report this weekend from the Washington Post that intelligence from months ago was suggesting that Ukrainian President Zelensky, he wanted to target even deeper inside Russia, even maybe take some Russian territory on the ground. How is this, these strikes, how is this different from what the Washington Post said Zelensky might have been asking for months ago?
So let's see if we can square these two. If, as you've described on the map, those strikes are going after military targets, fair game, makes perfect sense, keeps the Russian forces off balance, which is exactly what you want to do. If, in fact, any of these strikes are going after civilian targets, or there could be some collateral damage, or there could be the pushing of Ukrainian forces on the ground into Russia, that's a form of escalation that's not essential at this point. What Zelensky and his forces need to be able to do is, as described, is to decrease the amount of Russian forces that can assemble, can refit, and then be pushed across the border into Ukraine. If you could do that and disrupt that, you've really taken the initiative out of the hands of the Russian forces.
So again, we continue to hear about this fighting that's been going on for 11 months now in the eastern city of Bakhmut, and the Ukrainians are claiming some success at taking back small amounts of territory. Spider, is this the spring offensive, or when will we see the spring offensive? President Zelensky says it's coming soon.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing right now, this is the beginning stage of a larger offensive. We must hope, we have to assume. And the key thing in my mind is, let's stop talking, if we're the Ukrainians, let's stop talking about the spring offensive. Let's get about the business of the spring offensive. And it's not a shot from the cannon. It's not like a bunch of forces are suddenly going to surge and have these great sweeping motions in the vicinity of Bakhmut or elsewhere. What you're seeing right now are the initial phases. That's where you strip the enemy's ability to see you, you strip his eyes away, you then conduct your own reconnaissance, you feel your way to where the advantage can be, and then you load up with fires, you mass your forces, and you begin a penetration. That's how it has to take place. So that is not an immediate kind of a launch. That is a very gradual, a very aggressive, and a smart use of intelligence and fires to achieve that type of success.
Retired General James Spider, Mark Spider, always a pleasure to see you. Thanks so much.
And the Russian Ministry of Defense announced on Sunday that 2 of its commanders had been killed in combat in eastern Ukraine. It was a rare announcement confirming the deaths of high-ranking military officials, as several have already been killed since the war began in 2022. The ministry did not specify when they were killed, saying only that it was in the Donetsk region. Meanwhile, Ukraine's Deputy Defense Minister announced its forces captured more than 10 Russian positions near Bakhmut. He also said Ukrainian forces continue to move forward in the suburbs of the city. And the head of Russia's Wagner mercenary group has accused Russian defense leaders of lying over what he calls Moscow's deteriorating position in Bakhmut. He was responding Friday to a statement from the Ministry of Defense that Russian forces had redeployed to, quote, more advantageous positions. CNN's Fred Pleiken reports.
After months of brutal fighting, the battle for Bakhmut may be pushing Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin closer to the edge. Standing in front of the bodies of his dead fighters, he launched into a rant against Russia's military leadership, blaming them for the deaths.
You think you were the masters of this life? You think you can dispose of other lives? You think because you have warehouses full of ammunition that you have that right?
For months, Prigozhin and Vladimir Putin's top generals Sergei Shoigu and Valery Gerasimov have been mired in severe infighting. But now, the Wagner boss's tirades are becoming more vicious and more frequent, accusing Russia's defense minister of withholding much-needed ammo.
Instead of using a shell to kill an enemy and saving one of our soldiers' lives, they are killing our soldiers.
In a country where thousands have been jailed for criticizing Vladimir Putin's war, Prigozhin is getting away with his tantrums. That's because Putin doesn't fully trust his own military and needs Prigozhin, Russian investigative journalist Andrei Soldatov believes.
He's extremely paranoid about control and political stability. Prigozhin is a tool to, if not to keep the military in check, at least to keep them off balance.
The infighting seems to be costing Russia both lives and momentum. Ukraine's army now says it is making gains in Bakhmut. And while Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says his forces' long-anticipated counter-offensive has not yet started, Prigozhin today once again accusing the Russian army of cutting and running.
Those territories that were liberated with the blood and lives of our comrades every day progressed by dozens or hundreds of meters during many months, today are abandoned almost without any fight by those who are supposed to hold our flanks.
Bakhmut was supposed to be a much-needed win for Vladimir Putin, but now it could ring in major problems to come, Andrei Soldatov says.
I think he is nervous. Putin learned that he cannot trust completely what his people are telling him.
And that was Fred Pleiken reporting for you. And there are reports that 4 Russian military aircraft were shot down on Saturday within Russia's own territory. If confirmed, the incidents would mark a significant victory for Ukraine. Social media videos geolocated by CNN show at least 1 helicopter crashing near a town in Russia's Bryansk region, 50 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. The governor of Bryansk confirmed that a helicopter had crashed and injured 1 civilian, but gave no details on the cause. Another video showed a massive column of black smoke after an aircraft came down in the same region. Ukraine hasn't confirmed that it was involved in the reported downings, but says the aircraft, quote, ran into some trouble.